Hi fam, it's Dylan's mum Deborah. This is Dyl Friends.
Oh my God, we've killed Michael Jordan's dad.
I won the first Brownlow. The problem with that was I wanted it again.
Hey Jared, delete the tweet.
No, we're not here to break news.
This is an exclusive.
It's so silly looking back on for me because I remember just feeling like I'm not needed.
I couldn't, in my wildest of dreams, imagine that we would win the flag at the end of the year.
Damo's a lot funnier than people give him credit for.
Hugely funny.
But Andrew, a little message came across his phone and it was, give Job his Brownlow back.
Trav, what's going on, man?
Not much, mate. Good to see you.
3 years in the making, we're saying.
3 years in the making. First chat.
Good things come to those who wait. It's been a minute. I think there's been a few things, but we've always got through. So I appreciate you coming down.
Mate, thanks for having me on.
You did say though that I've got to come to you. So we're sitting here at the Port Adelaide HQ at the moment. I've had the full blown tour with the boys. It's a good setup.
Fresh. It's taken 18 years for us to have a big reno like this. So I've been here. This is my 19th year, and this is the first big reno we've had.
So what was it like when you got here?
A lot smaller, real old style gym. Tiny locker room. So our locker room was like a little oval, basically, and we're like little sardines, just crammed in.
I love playing this game. Like, talk us through the name, like the older boys when you walked in 19 years ago, like some of the nicheness of players that you...
Who do we have? Wakelin, Treadray, Brogan... Corns, Cassisi. Cassisi was a baby then.
Yeah.
He's retired now. Michael Wilson was playing.
What about Megahead?
Megahead was in.
Yep.
Yeah, Big Ebo.
Yeah.
Maxi Pettigrew, Toby Thurstons. Yeah,
Jeez, you got some...
Yeah,
you know another one that reaches out is Hitchcock?
Yeah, Ken Hitchcock.
Yeah, he just rings out to me somewhere. I don't know why, but he just is in my memory.
Few, mate. Johnny Butcher.
Yeah, Butch, yeah. I was actually saying this to the crew off air before, but when I left Carlton, and when I left, I got delisted, I was actually going to come over to play Samful at Central Districts.
All right.
It wasn't 100%, but if I didn't get picked up again, I was definitely going to come to Adelaide.
Yeah.
And Butch called me because he was playing there at the time.
Yeah,
and he was giving me the old come down and play, and then
gave you the spiel.
Yeah, but from what I've heard, apparently Centrals isn't the best place. So
when you get drafted back in the day, when you got drafted over here, you got a mini draft.
Yes.
And the two clubs that you didn't want to go to, you'd come in, the old boys, would be like, there's two clubs you don't want to go to. Central Districts was one, and South Adelaide was the other one. Only because of distance, and Centrals is a little bit.
Bit going on.
Yeah, bit going on.
I like that though. I like the roughness. I feel like I'd fit in out there.
Mate, it was an experience playing out there, that's for sure.
Mate, it's been an incredible career. There's so much to sort of go through today. 19 seasons, your career, incredible. So much. But some breaking news as well that sort of happened with the club. Remiss of us not to sort of talk about it and talk about Ken and his impact on you with the succession plan that's just been in place. Like, we were up there before when we were chatting and you just sort of walked out of a meeting with Kari and... Was that how are you feeling about the whole situation?
Mate, I had no idea really. So only literally no background on it at all. I only just found out this morning. We come in the meeting and normally in the morning we go through a little bit of vision before training. And then Richo was in there, CEO, a few others, media team. I'm like, what's going on here? There's always something. And then Richo came out and spoke and it's like, bang, okay. First initial emotion was probably a bit of sadness. Definitely around it because Kenny's, mate, we've been together a long time. 2013 was his first year. So what's that, 12 years, 13 years, something like that. And he's been a father figure to a lot of guys, more than just a footy coach. I know not just me, but a lot of guys have sat in his office and, poured their heart out at times, and he's just been a rock for a lot of guys. And he's meant so much to this footy club, meant so much to a lot of players. It's going to be a pretty big year for sure. We'd love to send him off on a big note. And then Kari, absolute champion player here at the footy club, and learnt, I think, a lot from when he first started as coach to going over and coaching. Where was he?
Is it Fremantle, I think? Yeah.
And then coming back, mate, he's going to be a ripper.
Yeah.
So the club's in good hands, but definitely going to be an emotional year this year for sure.
Yeah, I love Ken.
Yeah.
He just seems like such a ribbon dude, and he does wear his heart on his sleeve.
Mate, he's old school.
Yeah. Sometimes a little bit cringy celebrations are a bit they're not.
I know.
They're not great.
Mate, the Hawthorn game.
No, I liked that.
I loved it, but he didn't.
Didn't like
Mate,
it. That was the one I liked.
For the whole week, he was just like embarrassed, everything. He's hated it.
Mate, it's the best thing ever.
The boys love it.
Well, can you see, like, this year playing Hawks? Like, that is going to be easily the most watched game in the AFL.
Gather round too.
Yeah, I know. Like, they've put... See, this is what actually shits me. I know you can't comment on this, but, like, it's an absolute embarrassment in the AFL how they fine him for that, but then put it on a gather round because they know they're going to make millions of dollars off it. But anyway, I really liked it. I think, like, it's good for the game. Yep. Sam Mitchell, like, they're going to kill it. It'll be great. It'll be really good. Again, before we get into your personal journey, like the footy club, it's crazy. Like, I've spoke about this briefly through other podcasts as well, but I think it's one of the great untold stories of football, like what Port Adelaide's done over the last sort of 19 years. Like, even you've been a part of sort of the whole thing, you've probably seen it, but I remember my first game, I actually went and played in a NAB Cup game. I don't think it was called NAB Cup back then, but it was at Amy Oval, and there's not many people there, a lot of like tarps on seats, and it was one of those games where like three teams played each other.
I remember them.
Yeah, in
round
there.
robin style.
Yeah, the round robin. And it's so crazy to see like maybe the perception that Port Adelaide had about them back then to then the resurgence of like the Portress, Never Tear Us Apart. The brand is so much, stronger.
Yeah.
Like, how's that journey been for you?
Man, that's what I think a lot of people might forget over the journey, obviously, because our finals campaign over the last few years hasn't been great. What Kenny's actually done for this club, and not just Ken, but at the time, Koshi and everyone coming in. Mate, 2012 in particular, like, we were horrible, basket case. Like, making no money, 10,000, 12,000 at Amy Stadium. 2011, pretty similar. And it was like a hard place to be around, for sure. And the club was on its knees, screaming for help, basically. And all of a sudden, things just started to change in 2013. Appointment of Ken, who was the last man standing, basically, in his words. I'm pretty sure Koshi came in at that time. We started getting some sponsors. So at that time, we had no sponsors, really. I think one of them went bankrupt. Like, that's how bad it was. And it just, 2013, with the appointment of a few people, a couple of people coming in, I think Ollie was drafted that year. There was just a slight bit of excitement around it. I think Adelaide Oval was starting to get announced around that time. And things changed. Like, it was started to be a fun place to be around, started getting more people towards games, started winning games. I think we won 5. Did we win the first 5 that year? Yeah, won the first 5 that year. Just started a bit of momentum. And it was just an enjoyable place to be around. And then come Adelaide Oval in 2014, mate, it changed completely. Like, obviously never tear us apart. So we were in a leadership meeting, and Tara at the time I think she was in events, come to pitch the idea, like, we're going to do never tear us apart, scarves, all that sort of stuff. I'm like, I'm not sure it's going to take off. Like, it's a bit odd. Like, I think she went over to America and Europe and saw all that stuff going on, all the entertainment, and just let it go. And the fans did it. Like, we didn't like force it on them or anything. This is what we want to do. They had the scarves out, and then all of a sudden it just took off. And now it is one of the best things.
Do you know how long I've been searching to find like the person who somewhat did that? Because we were talking before about events, like Tara. So you're saying Tara? I don't know if she came up with the whole concept, but pitch it to you guys
in the leadership meeting.
Yeah, in the leadership meeting.
Yeah, and we're like, honestly, at the time we were like, maybe like.
Well, if it doesn't work, it can go the other way.
Yeah, 100%. But it just went bang and exploded like straight away, and the fans did it. It was all organic. Yeah, like, we didn't force them at all, and then they created it themselves. And now it's massive. The best one that I reckon I've ever had was 2014 semi-final. I think it was semi or elimination final against Richmond. Yeah. And it was that loud. We're in the centre square and we're watching it and missed the ball up, like, first centre bounce. Missed it. It was that good.
Far out, man. Yeah. Isn't it incredible? Like, as we said, you go from having one of the hardest to get crowds, and now it's like one of the best things that people want to tick off their bucket list to come watch you guys play, to do it. Yeah.
Well, even talking to opposition players, mate, like, throughout the year, they're like, mate, we actually look forward to coming, which is, we don't want it to be like that. Yeah. It's like we want to intimidate you, but they enjoy it, which is, Adelaide Oval was just a beautiful place to play footy.
Yeah. With that time as well, you're talking about the club sort of in that weird spot, like you being at a really good part of your career, into a prime that's lasted for a long time, obviously. But when was like the period of you going like, do I end up finishing my career here and playing here for a long time versus I know there were other clubs that really wanted to, either bring you home back to Victoria and the Geelong region or I think Collingwood was another team that was.
Yeah, I mean, so 2012 was the big year of I think it could happen.
Yeah.
Go back. I mean, initially getting drafted was like, okay, 2 years I'm here and I'm going back home. Like that's how it was going to be. And there was 2 years. Okay, I'll sign for another 2 years. Probably go back home. Sign another 2 years, and then eventually come to 2013. 2012, obviously the Geelong story, and it was close. Like I was probably 50-50 for a lot of the year, and then towards the back end of the year, it just felt like I was leaving the place in a bad position. I would have felt horrible, and I just felt like I needed to stay to help make a difference rather than walk away from something that wasn't great. And then I think signing on from that moment was like, I'm here for life now. Like that was it, and it might have only been, I think that was probably my longest contract, which might have been 3 or 4 years, and then after that it's been a bit smaller. But I've never sort of contemplated going anywhere else after that.
Yeah, it's awesome. What's been like the biggest thing that you think you've put towards like the longevity of yourself? Like I know from afar, well, I don't know this, but I know from like looking at what your content is like when you're going away in off seasons, doing this incredible work. Was that something that you always were like as a junior, or was it something you built in the early years of your career?
I think I've always been like really competitive. I think I just hate losing to a point where it's probably not a healthy thing. So that's always been there ever since I was a kid. Mum's probably got a lot more stories. I used to race my sister to eat Weet-Bix, who was going to win like the fastest eating Weet-Bix. And then, so that was always there. The hunger was always there to try and get better, but it was probably there to a point where it was just like, it had to be perfect. Everything had to be perfect. And, probably got up until 2019, I started to understand I can train at a high level for a different reason, just to be the best I can possibly be, to reach my potential, not to beat everyone, not to compare myself to everyone else, not to be perfect. So to a point, it got me so far, and then 2017, 2018, it just drained me. Like it started to get really hard. I was training at a really high level, trying to do everything I possibly could, but mentally it was so drained. So it wasn't until like 2019 where I realised I do the same training and enjoy trying to be the best I could, but it doesn't have to come at the cost of my mental health, of comparing myself to others. And I don't know if you ever did it playing footy, but like you get drafted. I got drafted with Joel, compare myself to Joel early days. And you're playing against other midfielders, they're having certain possessions, all that kind of stuff. Man, I've got to do that now. Otherwise I'm no good. So that's what drove me at the start, to try and be the best and do extra. And then I started to understand I can still do the same thing, but not have to be perfect.
I think I've realised that even later, like now on what's going on in life is like what serves you to get to a certain point isn't going to get you to the next point.
Yeah.
So you sort of need to just like reassess with what you're doing, and our minds are so powerful. And I'm sure I know that you love this stuff too, but it's really interesting. Like if you look back at when you were like 18, 19, right? So you get drafted and you're doing the stuff. Like you probably had everything that you wanted when you were 12, but the reason, like you get there and you're like, fuck, this is what I wanted when I was 12. I haven't actually reassessed what I want now.
Yeah.
So you sort of like got to make sure that you're always just like aligned with like what you're doing.
100%, mate.
Yeah.
And like whether it's goals, purpose, however you want to look at it, that changes over time. And to reflect and even just ask yourself the question of who am I, what do I want? That changes like year to year. And I think that's a really powerful tool to understand where you are in life and what you want and what your purpose is in that moment. It just, I feel like it just changes trajectory of where you're going, because it does change all the time.
What changed for you then in that sense? Like what did you realise you wanted versus what you were doing, or who you wanted to be, what you wanted to enjoy? Like what changed?
Yeah, I think for me, what changed the most is who I was doing it for. A lot of the time I was to please others, basically. Like for me, like I struggled with like trying to be perfect all the time, what others think of me, you know, trying to fit in, all that kind of stuff. And my way of doing it was, well, maybe if I'm the best at everything, that's how I do it. And I then in 2019, fortunate enough to meet Crowe, who's started as my life coach in that point, to understand that I'm okay as I am, and football is just what I do. And all of a sudden, I was like, what? I can go play football, be the best I possibly can be, and it doesn't change my worth. That's the moment everything changed. And I started to train at a high level through enjoyment and just how far can I push this for me and my enjoyment of playing footy and being competitive, rather than doing it for other people's validation.
Yeah. Have you worked with Emma Murray at all?
No, I've never met her.
Yeah, Em's a star.
Yeah.
Obviously with Ben Crowe and Emma, they worked at Richmond together pretty closely, but I had a podcast with her a couple of weeks ago, and I had like the biggest realisation recently, like since I finished playing sport, I was like, just wasn't working out, I wasn't feeling good. But the reason I like get into the gym, then drop off, get in, drop off. And the reason it didn't stick was like I was doing it for the wrong reasons. Like I was doing it to try and look like you, or, you know, get a six-pack, get like abs, look good. But when it actually stuck was like, fuck, I'm doing this to be like clear of mind, you know, be a good role model for my son, have better mental health, like all those. That's when I realised it actually had stuck like with me to do it versus like trying to do it to look better.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
How much more enjoyment do you have?
So much more, man.
And then you actually stick to it
Stick
a lot
to
more.
it. Yeah. Yeah, like I'm almost addicted to it in a sense, in a good, healthy way of just like doing it. And it's not enough. Like the byproduct of that is, you feel good, but your body changes, and the physical and mental side of things is huge.
No, it's huge. And you actually train at a high level then. You're not as stressed, you're not as worried. Did I do this right? Did I not do that right? Just like, I'm going to send it.
So how'd the off-season camp stuff start? Like obviously there's a great partnership with Red Bull that you work with and doing some incredible stuff with them.
Yeah. So
when did it first get pitched?
2017, Ian McEwen was our strength coach at the time, and it was. I remember it clearly. We're in the gym one day. I'm like, mate, like, I need an edge. Like, I just want 1 or 2 more percent. What can I do in the off season to, just enhance it? Like, I know we're training, like running. We're in the gym, doing skill work. Like, what else can I do? Is there something else? And he's like, oh, I've got this guy in the States. His name's Austin. He's a gun. You can go train with him, and it's in Santa Cruz, which is a beautiful surf town in California. It's like, mate, do that. Go enjoy yourself, and learn a bit of stuff from him. So that's how it all started. And I went over there, and his work is all around body mechanics, sprint stuff, all that kind of stuff. So what that helped me with was injury prevention. Basically, that's how it all started. So fortunate enough, I haven't missed too many games over my career, but a lot of it was from his work and understanding my body. So what he does is a lot of you roll around on the ground a lot like a baby, and like, so he's got this picture on the wall of a baby and how they like roll around and how flexible they are and all that kind of stuff. And we lose a lot of that as we get older, and just activating the spine differently, your hips and all that kind of stuff. So it's really weird, but loved it. So that's where that started, and continued to go back over the years and train with him, and then signed with Red Bull. I reckon it was around 2017, 2018. And they've got 2 high performance centers, one in Austria and one in Santa Monica. So it kind of worked out well. I love going to the States, love American sport, and they've got a facility there to train at. So been fortunate enough to go back every year. Yeah.
It's funny as you say that. Like, I've got little boys too, and you might have to train with him because like he can like dead set, mate. The flexibility on the
crazy.
I know people think I'm taking the piss here, but he gets ass to grass. Like he can like sit like
how they
down,
can squat
and talk, and like it's just amazing how flexible they are.
Yeah.
And you just lose it because you don't, if you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah.
And it's crazy.
So it's kind of just educate you around just simple stuff that you forget. And like, I'm not flexible at all, but like just hip movement, all that kind of stuff just made a massive difference.
Huge. I want to talk about your leadership. Obviously, captain the club for how many years?
6.
6 years.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy it?
Loved it, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah, loved it. In particular, early days, and then it started to change.
Yeah.
The back end of it, kind of around the same time that things started to get more challenging.
Yeah.
As like mentally, was around the same time that the captaincy started to become a lot harder as well. So 16, 17, 18 started to get a lot harder. And like, I don't wish I could go back and change it. Like, from what I know now, I think it's helped me on my perspective of life and footy now. But I try to control everything, and it just drained me. Try to be perfect, try to be a captain I probably wasn't. And I think that was the thing that I learned the most, is there's so much out of your control. And mate, I was like not performing how I wanted to. I was playing a half forward at the time, which was frustrating. And I was just like, I can't impact games. I'm a shit captain now. So then I'd come into the club and like I was embarrassed. Like I was like walking in like this. Like, I'm meant to lead this club and I'm playing like shit, and I'm a shit person because I'm not playing good footy. Like, it was all sort of blending like that. So it's hard to get out of bed at times and come in. But I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change it for anything. I loved every minute of captaining the footy club. It's a great honour, and I've learnt a hell of a lot, especially those tough years, and mentally what I used to do. Certainly when I was challenged to what I think now and my perspective on things now.
Yeah, I spoke to Butters, Zachy, about yourself, and he was saying that was probably one of the biggest things he said that would be valuable to touch on today, is when you finished up the captaincy, like your shift in mentality around like just helping the young boys, and probably, as you just mentioned, like not wishing the experience didn't happen, but being able to pass it on to others and focus on the right stuff. Yeah,
well, I think that's what I look at it like. Okay, I went through that and those challenges and how I led during that time, and what I wish I changed is now I get to educate others, and hopefully they don't have to go through it. So, everything was around trying to control everything to be perfect, basically. And my whole identity was attached to leader, like captain and performance. And that was the biggest challenge. And if I can now educate, whether it's Connor at the moment or a young leader coming up, that their leadership, their performance, what they do on the field has nothing to do with who they are. So they can just go, okay, I can just go out and be me and lead how I want to, and maybe we'll win, maybe I'll play well, maybe I won't, and it doesn't affect who you are as soon as you get off the field. So it's like, okay, I went through that to help others in that situation.
Love it, mate. I want to hear two stories now. Okay, I didn't prep you for this, but one is highest moment, like highest euphoric moment playing with Port. Like, I want to get like maybe a highlight thus far. Hopefully this year there's some more.
Yep.
And then what's like a moment you look back and going like, fuck, that was a low moment for a team perspective. Like, for example, one of those days, like early days, like after a big loss, like...
Mate, you might have been playing in it.
Yeah. Which one?
Giants.
Oh, was this which one was that? No, I definitely wasn't playing in it. But
then?
Was this Giants or Carlton?
No, Giants.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which game was this?
Low point.
Which one was that?
Your first win, Giants' first win.
Was that against
Against us. So Gold Coast beat us for their first win, and then the Giants beat us for their first win. It was at whatever stadium it was back. I think NG, is that what it is now? I think
Spotless
it was still back
or
then,
NG?
or whatever
Yeah.
it was then. That was the down, mate. It was the most horrible moment after. Like, it was just sickening.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, well done to the Giants for getting their first win, but mate, it was. Like, I've never been more embarrassed in my life. And that was, Promise got sacked after that game. And sitting in that room, mate, I've never felt so sick. And we played up there last year and we're in the same room and we lost again. And it almost brought back memories. Like, I think it was only me that played in that game. So I was the only one that felt really sick, but that was horrible.
Was Promise the only coach that got sacked while you were playing?
Yeah. Well, Choco
Oh, Choco at the
Yeah,
beginning?
Choco was first coach, and then he moved on, and then Primus came in for 2 years.
Yeah. How weird's you've been in the footy for a long time. You've seen a lot of people exit clubs.
Horrible.
Like, how weird are those days? Like,
Mate,
because you just know what's going on.
Yeah, well, it's just like this feeling you get around, and then like you get an email or something like, "Boys,
Coming
come
on
to
the day
club
off,
early."
yeah.
Oh no, something's happening, and then so that's happened twice with Choco and then Maddie.
Yeah.
Yeah, shocking times.
What's your favourite moment? Because even for me, like thinking there was this one game that it was a year where I feel like if you weren't supporting the team that you were playing, people were going for Port.
Yep.
And it was when Ken had sort of just started to flick it, and everyone was just like Jasper Pittard off the half-back flank, just absolutely rolling onto his left and going in. Like
Matty White down the wing.
Matty White down the wing, yeah, just kicking like goals and running 100 metres.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that was pretty cool.
I think 2013, 2014, I don't know if I can combine one game into my highest moment, but those years were amazing, mate. Just, I think off the back of like how bad the years before that were, to then go, oh, wow,
turn.
Like, it turned. Like, it's starting to turn. And I think that was definitely like the moments that year were just, wow, footy's actually pretty fun. And you can start winning games of footy. So like for 3 or 4 years, it was like, we suck. We can't win games. We're never going to win games. And then for that year, those 2 years to really turn it around, especially 2014, like that was a big year to make the prelim, lose to Hawthorn by 3 points. It just sort of cemented us as a relevant footy club.
Who do you look to for inspiration outside of football, outside of AFL, like any other athletes or people in the world?
I think for me, I've always looked at like probably more senior athletes now. Like, what are they doing to extend their career? I think like LeBron and Tom Brady were two that I really looked at on the aspect of, okay, what were they doing to still be relevant and good at an older age? So that kind of inspired me in a way to, okay, I can still do different things. Like I might not be as quick as some of the young kids or as fit as some of the young kids right now, but I can still add different elements to my game. And they're probably two that really, like I sort of looked at a lot, but non-athletes, like Brene Brown has been a massive impact. I think before 2019, I never really read. Like in school, year 10, I think I had my first book assignment. I got my physio at the time to do the assignment for me. She read the book, did my assignment. So I never read a book. And that was her book, Daring Greatly, was the first book I ever read, really, like from front to back. And that changed my whole outlook on life.
I'm going to buy you a book after this. People are going to cringe at me saying this because I say it so often, but there's a book that changed my life. It's called The Mountain Is You by Brianna Weist.
Oh, right.
Have you heard of this before?
No, I haven't.
It's a really good book. Like the title is basically like The Mountain Is You.
The Mountain Is You,
More
okay.
meaning that you're the problem in a lot of the things that
Everything's
you
in
want to
our head.
achieve.
Yeah, we're our own worst
But
enemy.
it's an unbelievable book, and that comes from, again, two blokes that probably had never read before that. Is Derek Rowe someone that you really love too?
Did Zach tell you that?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
No, Derek Rose, he was my first favourite NBA player.
Yeah.
I think, so I never really watched NBA too much until Robbie moved in with me early days, and he was obviously a massive Lakers Kobe fan and got me into basketball. And the first year I started watching, got into fantasy and all that, was Derek Rose's first year, and that's kind of where that love came from. But then what I loved about him is like his humility around being an MVP in the NBA and then just being the most humble athlete. So you can still have both, where a lot of athletes get to the pointy end and it's all about them, what I've achieved, everything, where I think he was just one that it was just about just being a good person, being a good person first, athlete second, and he was like the epitome of that. And yeah, that's where that sort of love come from.
After these like 19 seasons, I suppose, of like your life and the growth of you as a person, what does a week look like for you now? Like, what are non-negotiables in your week, even outside of the footy club, that take place?
My day off has to be a day off.
Yeah.
Like, that's a massive one now. I think definitely when I was captain, like there was always something to do, and you always had, whether it was a club commitment or someone outside of the club wanted something on, okay, I'll put it on my day off. And so you never really had any time away from footy. So now I've always had the rule of, whether it's a Thursday, completely free. Not one thing is on that day. I'll wake up Thursday morning and I'll do what I want to do that day. So it's a complete switch off from day-to-day life of footy. And that, I think, has helped me a lot to be able to switch off, because I've found it really hard too. Like, it was footy, and or a pure athlete. Like, okay, how do I get better every minute of every day? And I didn't realise that switching off was a part of that. So that was probably one non-negotiable. But one thing now I've probably done better than I did when I was younger is just my whole preparation leading into a week. So I have a footy journal Bible now that I write in every night, every day, around recovery, what I do mentally, what I do physically, and what I do in my craft. And I just sort of fill it out every day. And then I get to the night before a game, review my week. What did I do? How did I feel is a big one. And then I wake up the next morning, write down 3 points of how I show up as an athlete that day, and then I go play footy. I've done all the work during the week. Everything's been ticked off. It might not be perfect, but I've done a lot and I'm ready to go. And then game day's not even really preparation anymore. It's just go have fun. So that's kind of probably a bit more structured than most, but I love it. It's fun, and I know it helps me a lot. But part of that is definitely the day off.
So what are the things you tick off during the week? Like, is that just like ice baths, like those sort of things, or is it more? So
there's 3 things. I can't remember the book that I got it from. There's 3 things you can work on. It's your mind, your body, and craft. And so I write that down on the front page of that week, starting that week. And so for my body, the things that have helped me over the years: ice baths, saunas, hot bath, recovery boots, whatever it is that has helped me. I write those things down and sort of tick them off as I do them during the week. So mental is journal, meditate, might be go for a walk, play golf, those sort of things. I put that in the mind part, and then the craft is whatever I need to work on for the week, whether it's vision, ground balls, touch. They get ticked off during the week. So then I look at it over the week rather than just going, oh, what did I do? Like, it's there.
You know what you've done, yeah.
And I can look at it and go, okay, I'm ready to go. It might not translate to a good game, but I know that I've done the work. So, that's kind of helped me a lot over the year.
And how do you physically feel like at the moment?
Back's a bit sore right now.
Yeah.
Mate, I still feel pretty good. Like, my body has its days. Like, the back still gets a little bit sore here and there. I've had a lot of surgeries.
How many have you had now?
I'm up to like 15.
Okay.
But I've been fortunate enough.
Some good numbers.
Some good numbers. But I've been fortunate enough to recover from pretty well. But the legs feel amazing. Still running pretty well. Fortunate enough to still cover the ground okay.
Where do you see a role this year for yourself? Like, what do you want to do on field? Have you got like achievements that you want to hit, or is it more just team success that you sort of go in with?
I haven't really set any individual goals other than, it's funny, I don't know if you've ever done this, but it's like, how do you define success?
Oh, I've done this a lot of times, yeah, for sure.
I think a lot of us success is like, I play well or we win a flag. Success for me now is to just show up as me, as authentic as I can, whether it's in a game, whether it's in a meeting, whether it's whatever, and not try and perform in a way. It's just go be you. And so that's kind of really all I'm focused on. And in my book is just like, I'm here to realize my potential. That's all it is. So for me, it's going out there and like, I want to dominate. I want to win. That's the competitive athlete in me. But it's just go do it being you. That's kind of the big thing. And part of that is, okay, well, how do I educate guys on the ground? How do I be a good leader? How do I be a good teammate? And how do I be a good athlete? Like, they're the things that really are all I focus on. So my role will be pretty similar to the last couple of years on the wing, which is a kind of a good spot to help a lot of the midfielders, because you're in like a cover position. You can set up the stoppage a little bit and you can sort of do it that way. So, it's really just a bit open, mate. Like, I would love to win a flag. It's out of my control. But as long as I show up and give everything I got.
Absolutely, mate. You've done so much work on yourself. I think it's so cool. Like, I would love people listening to this, because I think a lot of the times to get to the work that you've put in, and I think a lot of people can understand that something probably has to not go right to do that. So I think it's a credit to yourself that you've been able to have a really successful long career, and it hasn't taken like a delisting or probably a lower. You've had obviously ups and downs and lots of things happen, but something that maybe is as you haven't been able to not act on it, I suppose, going forward. So I think it's a really powerful thing because a lot of people, I'm not sure if you can do that without, realising or regretting something.
Yeah. Well, I think we all have what's probably called crucible moments in our life, really, and it's reflecting on them. And I think the biggest thing is what did I learn from that? Like, what can I take out of it? And I think part of that is like the humility of it, right? Like, it's hard to own it sometimes. It's like, well, I made that mistake, but I don't, like, someone else's fault or whatever. And really owning it and understanding that didn't go the way I wanted to, but how can I change? And really, it's just a perspective thing. But yeah, I've been fortunate enough to have a lot of good people around me, and listening to them has definitely helped me a lot. Incredible.
If you had to pick 3 guys you've played with over your career now that you're going out to battle with, who would you pick?
I think Robbie would be definitely at the top of that list.
Robbie Gray?
Yeah, Robbie Gray, mate.
And you guys weren't tight early days either.
Not on the plane.
Yeah.
Nah, we so TAC Cup days, he torched us when I was playing at the Falcons. He was at Oakley. They won the flag that year, which he always reminds me of. And he torched us. And we got on the flight, didn't speak, on the flight over. And then, we become best mates as soon as we landed, basically.
Well, the people that you don't like, often you find, like, the best relationship with.
100%. Like, there's a lot of guys that on the field, like, I've never met. I'm like, that guy's, he's a sack. Like, I don't think I'll ever like him. You go meet him, like, mate, this is a legend. Yeah. It's so weird. I think you've had Track on here before. Yeah. Like, we didn't like each other. It's a funny story. So we had the same Nike rep. Like, he was looking after us, Curtis. And he said to Curtis one day, like, Boakie's, like, hate him. Like, he's a loser. Like, I think I said something to him on the field, which happens.
He's emotional, Track. Yeah.
And then we met at a nightclub in Melbourne first time. And then I think the next day, like, he said, mate, he's actually a good bloke. Yeah. And we've become good mates since then. But it's funny, on field is just so different.
It's so different, mate. And I've found that the most. Like, the people that you don't like, often you must see something in them that, like, you've either got yourself or...
Yes.
Yeah.
Just competitive animals, mate. It just
so Robbie's number one?
Robbie's number one. I think Chad Corns would definitely be in the 3.
Why Chad?
Mate, he was a big game player.
Yeah.
Like, he loved the moment. I was probably towards the back end of his career a little bit. But his 2007 season was ridiculous. Yeah. Like, he could play back, wing, on ball, forward, like every position and dominate. And ridiculous. So he would definitely be in the top 3. And then I'd probably nearly go a modern day, like, player now. And Zach's probably the 3rd one. But I think Horny's going to be pretty close as well. Yeah. We've only seen a glimpse of him, but he's going to be ridiculously good. His trajectory is only skyrocketing. So I'd probably be out of those 2, I think.
Yeah. It was funny when I saw Horny out there today. I wanted to make an ice bath gag, but I was like, that might be...
Like, you should have.
It might be too far. Zach is, for me, like... Again, I've probably got a bit of a crush on him as well, but like watching him against Hawthorn when he had, like, the broken ribs and coming out in that first contest, just like, you're just like, how do you not get inspired by that as a team when someone's throwing himself at the ball like that?
Mate, crazy. Like, I don't think people understand how bad his ribs were.
Yeah.
I did my ribs, like, maybe the year before that or 2 years before. I missed, like, 4 weeks. I couldn't, like, roll over in bed. He's gone out and just done that. Like,
yeah, he's psycho.
And just goes straight in, like, ridiculous. And I think he was going to the hospital after the game. Like,
he's tough as nails.
Tough as nails.
Chad, the Corns one, like, remiss on us, we're doing a Port play, not to touch on the Corns brothers. He, like, playing with Kane now, him in the media, and then you say, like, you know, Chad as well. Like, I've met them both, love both of them. Couldn't be more different people. Like, how was that dynamic when they were playing together versus what you see of them now?
It was weird, mate. Like, both, I feel like both kind of intimidating in a certain way when I first came in. Kane was actually my mentor when I first came into the club. And Chad was like, mate, you're scared of him when you first came over as a young kid. Like, he was just, he'd, like, run into walls before games and, like, it wouldn't talk to you that much. But, like, just absolute beasts, like both so competitive in different ways. Like Kane would just be like so particular about his preparation and who he was playing on, and then like he was just dialed in on this bloke is not getting a kick. And then Chad was just like, I'm going to be the best player on the field, like, and just had that mindset of dominating. Both so competitive in different ways, but yeah, so different off the field. Like Chad loved to party, had like some nice girlfriends along the way. Where Kane was married, like basically in high school.
Yeah,
right? And Chad just both worked incredibly hard, but like different off the field.
Very. Is Chad still working with the club? Was he doing some stuff?
Yeah, he's forward line coach.
Forward line coach?
At the moment.
Wow.
Yeah, so he's come full circle too, because he was at the Giants, did some stuff there and then come back.
Yeah.
And we've got all the old boys back. Matty Loby's here, Harty's here, Paul Stewart, Hoff, they're all here.
Yeah, Hoff's a cool man. He reminds me a lot of, like, I don't know him that well, but we were chatting at the induction camp. He reminds me a lot of like a Cade Simpson.
Yes.
They're just like super quiet dudes. Like if you never called them again, you'd probably never hear from them, sort of thing. Like they just don't like stay in touch.
Yeah.
What's your, I know we said before around, and I was listening definitely about just wanting to be you and showing up and living your values, but do you have an idea of whenever you do finish up playing footy in the next 5 or 10 years, I'd love to see you sort of hit the 400 mark, would be nice.
Thanks, mate.
Games. What you want to do after footy? Do you want to stay in it, or is it something you haven't even really given thought to yet?
No, I've definitely started to give it more thought, certainly over the last couple of years. It's a tricky one. Like part of me does want to stay in footy a little bit, but then a part of me just wants to get out of it. But I want to stay in the whole space of performance in some element. I think what I've been fortunate enough to learn from different people and what's helped me, it would be selfish of me not to then share that and try and help others in a different way, whether it's in football, whether it's different sport, whether it's in business. I would love to stay in the whole mindset performance coach aspect. So whether that's a little bit in footy, certainly game day, like it's going to be hard to leave game day. Like it's the most fun you have. So whether that's a bench role or some way, but I would love to sort of go into the space of, for me, it's about being a good human first, athlete second. So how can I educate someone who's going through that, whether it's in sport or business or whatever it is, and the things that I've learned, and share that.
How does it feel, like sit with you as well? You know, I know you're still in the midst of it. There's so much to achieve, but to sort of reflect on what's happened thus far, like hitting, you know, Port's most games this year, potentially going into the top 10 most games ever played. Like that's something to be pretty proud of.
Oh, definitely, man. As I mean, we all kind of say it, but it's something that I'll definitely look back on more after it's done. Like right now, I honestly don't even really give it too much thought.
Yeah.
And I don't even really talk about it with anyone unless it sort of comes up with the club. Like I just love playing. I love competing. And footy used to be everything. Like it was the be all and end all. And I used to think that's how you fitted it in the world. So that was the most important thing, where now it's how can I impact the people around me, my community, whoever it is, in a better way? Am I doing that well enough? Am I being a good person first rather than, you know, just solely focused on that kind of stuff? So I'll definitely, like, I'm proud of the effort that I'll put in, and hopefully still got a bit more left, but it's certainly something I'll probably look at more after. Yeah,
for sure. And again, not to harp on this, but like, I think for you, and I don't know if this is what I'm picking up, like, and I think today spending time with you, I can sort of sense it as well. Like, I don't think that you want to like get through this year and then, like, I feel like you want to keep going for a bit longer, like as long as you can.
Definitely.
And like, if you can continue and perform, you will go as long as you can.
100%. Mate. Like it's, the enjoyment's there for like the enjoyment for competing.
If you're enjoying it and you feel
still there. Yeah. Like, and if my body's still hanging in there, like that's the most important thing. If I'm like letting the team down in some way and keeping someone out because I'm just trying to hold on, and I don't want to hold on to win a flag, because I believe that if you win a flag or not, like as long as you give everything you had, and I'd more than anything want the club to win a flag for the whole of the Port Adelaide community, not necessarily for any individual. So 100% I'd play as long as I could, mate, as long as I'm competing at the level I want to compete at.
Your language around it, it's really interesting because I've seen you, because like you've picked certain words like,
Right.
we were talking about our mindset like
Yeah.
earlier around like what you say evidently will happen.
Yes.
So if you say like, I'm getting tired, I'm feeling sore, that
Yes.
will happen to your body.
I get you.
Versus if you're saying I'm feeling good, I'm keeping on top of myself, this is what I'm going to achieve, eventually that will
100%.
translate into everything else.
Yes, now I'm with you.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Like, it literally, that's probably one thing I've learnt too, like how you talk to yourself.
It's
what
the
you
biggest thing in the
think.
world, man.
Mate, that happens. Like, it starts to translate into your life, like what actually does happen. And it's funny, it's like as simple as, like, you might be running late, right? And you're like, man, I'm going to get every red light. Bang, you'll get every red light.
100%.
Like, that happens.
It does.
It's crazy. So it's the same as like, okay, this is how I want to perform. This is how I feel. Well, that's how it's going to eventuate.
That would be my biggest like lesson over the last little bit, was how important like the self-talk session is with yourself. And I know it gets a bit woo-woo here, but like even with anxiety and stuff like that. And I talk about it a lot on the podcast because I want to help people that also sort of deal with it in their life. But like even now, like I'll never say I struggle with anxiety. I'd say like I thrive with anxiety, or it's just, I wouldn't even really talk about it or acknowledge it, because then the more you talk about your problems, the bigger they grow.
Yep.
Just focus on the important stuff. Like there's obviously scales of this, of when you need to come up and down with it, but it's a really important thing. And I found like once you just pick up your language on stuff, you catch yourself out, it becomes really habitual to just continue going.
Yeah, no, mate, I totally agree. And even little things like changing the language from I am anxious or I am this to I feel this. So it's just something that you're going through in that stage. It just completely changes everything. It's like, oh, okay, so I'm not broken.
Yeah.
There's no way out of it. And like people going through a lot of hard stuff, like, and you need support around you. But like that's what's helped me, is just changing a little bit of language, a little perspective on things. I'll tell you a story, and this is me and Pep. Like we've become really, really close. And so when I lost Dad, like when he passed away, it was like real victim mindset. Like why me? And then I'd always see like young kids with their dads and they don't have a great relationship. I'm like, that's bullshit. Like you should love your dad. Like you're lucky to have him, kind of thing. I was like, like my dad got taken away from me. He was healthy, didn't drink, like didn't smoke, all that kind of stuff. We got cancer and died. So it was like, poor me all the time. I met Pep and moved in for a couple of years, and we just started like communicating and talking, getting more vulnerable with each other. And he shared his story, and he's openly spoken about, you know, his early days with his dad. And honestly, like from that moment, I was just like, what the hell was I complaining about? I was so lucky to have my dad for 16 years. And all of a sudden it changed my complete outlook on life. It was like, oh, hang on, I'm not a victim anymore. I was so grateful to have him for 16 years for him to share what he did with me and the love and guidance and all that kind of stuff. A lot of kids don't have that. And like just that perspective change and talking to Pep about that and him sharing his story about that just completely changed everything for me. And that's where like I was like, oh, so how you look at something can change your whole mindset.
Yeah. My favourite quote in the world is, it's not what happens, it's how you react to it. And it's just like any situation that applies, any situation. And unfortunately, /fortunately, you sort of look back at any sort of hardship you face and like always, if you have that mindset, something good comes from it.
Yes.
Like you look at any hard thing that's happened, like good things come straight after it. So even when I'm in a shit time, like I a few months ago, I was just like going through this bit and had to like get back to myself. And I was like, I'm actually pumped because I know something sick's coming after this.
Yeah.
Like I'm actually like, I'm building like to something good. So
yeah.
How else have you like had any moments of like mindset shifts throughout your career?
So 2019, I hurt my shoulder like against the Giants again. I think I ran into Phil Davis. And at the time I was like, oh, that kind of stung a little bit, and then played out the next 3 or 4 weeks with like no power in my shoulder. I thought I'd just done like a labral sort of tear. And then went in for surgery. Surgery was only meant to be half an hour. Went for 2.5 hours, like tore all my tendons and everything in my shoulder. And I was in a sling for like 9 weeks. And like, mate, he was like, I'm done. Like, I don't think I can come back from this. Like, poor me again. and like career done. Like I think I need to retire. Like it's too painful. I can't move it. Like I'm not coming back. Went over to the States. Was fortunate enough to have 10 days at Red Bull at the time, and I went from like not being able to move it at all to like lift it over my head just from constant treatment every day. Then I went and saw Austin in Santa Cruz at the time, and I remember that as soon as I saw him, walked in, he was like, mate, you seem a bit flat. And I'm like, mate, like my shoulder's cooked. Like I'm done. Like I can't do this. I can't lift. I can't do this. I can't do this. And he was like, mate, all I'm hearing is like, you can't do this. Like, what can you do? And I'm like, oh, well, I can probably do this, and I can probably do this a little bit. And literally, like, mate, I smiled straight away, and it was like instantly, it was like I've gone from everything is a negative, like I can't do anything, to he was like, mate, well, there's some things you can do. Like, what can you do? And all of a sudden, I started focusing on some positives. Like, oh, well, I can probably bench press like 5 kilo. Like, let's start with that. And then, mate, by the end of the week, I went from like hardly being able to lift any weight, to bench pressing like 25 kilo, 30 kilo, single arm dumbbell on my shoulder, which was like nothing a week before that. So that shift from like, I can't, this is bad, to, oh, what can I do? So it was like kind
the
of
language
spoke about before in terms of perspective, and just that subtle shift was like, okay, now I'm good to go again. And then 2020 was like my best year that I've ever had. So it's like, wow, that was a big shift.
Isn't it sick? Like you've worked with some awesome people, as you said, like Ben Crow, Austin, who is he with Red Bull?
No, so he's just a trainer out in America that I met through Ian. So Austin Einhorn, yeah.
Cool. And he's the one that you go back with quite
year.
consistently. Yeah. Nam Baldwin, you've worked with as well.
Yeah.
So we've lined up a cool pod with him later this year. We're pretty excited, but he's sort of a pretty good kept secret at the moment.
He'll talk for hours.
Yeah.
Great man.
How'd you meet him?
I was fortunate enough to meet him through Red Bull again. So what Red Bull do, and which they do amazingly well, is get all the athletes together, all the Australian athletes together every year and have a summit. So they hold little like workshops together, and you get to like just bounce ideas off each other. Well, how do you deal with this? How do you deal with this? Everyone just sort of shares stories. And one of the workshops was Nam, and he was working with a couple of athletes at the time. I think he was working with Mick Fanning, with Chumpy at the time, and maybe Corey Tunison, the wakeboarder. And he ran a little session there just around how to like focus your breathing in stressful situations. And certainly with the surfers, like you get held underwater, you got to be really calm under pressure. And I met him after we played West Coast in that final that went into overtime. And I remember that game where I wasn't like as clear as I would have liked to be. We stuffed up a lot of decision making around stoppage and setups and that kind of stuff. I'm like, I'd love to be able to be a bit clearer when the pressure's on. And it just so happened to meet him at the time. Straight after that, I was like, okay, this is perfect, and hit him up after that. And we've kind of worked together ever since. And just around pressure moments, how to control your breathing, what to focus on when things are getting challenging, that kind of stuff. So, for an example, you're getting tagged or the game's going against you, haven't had a kick, and you can get in the mindset of like, shit, I've got to chase the ball, like I've got to go get a kick, and your head's all scattered, your heart rate's up, you're just chasing the game a little bit. And then it's like, bang, okay, if I just focus on my breathing or I just focus on my hands or my feet, all of a sudden I come back to the present and, okay, well, how do I do that stuff? Well, I just run to a contest, to shape the contest, whatever it is. And all of a sudden the game starts to change because you just start thinking so much clearer, and he was able to teach me that.
What is, for someone who doesn't know what he does, what is his sort of like title names? Like, he's a
performance coach.
Performance coach.
Yeah. So performance coach, whether it's through mindset or physical. So some of the stuff we've done is weird. Like
some weird stuff.
Yeah. It's
what's the weirdest thing you've done with him?
A couple of things on my Instagram. And he did a lot of stuff with Mick, and I was fortunate enough to train with Mick Fanning at the time with sticks. So you had to like duck under sticks and jump over sticks and then peg balls at you, and you got to like dodge the balls and all this kind of stuff. So you got to be like quick on your feet, and you got to like try and think at the same time. And then he puts a little thing on your finger to measure your heart rate, and you got to like breathe as like best you can to try and lower your heart rate as quick as you possibly can. So that was fun. And then he pulls out these like coloured shapes that you've got to like read out while your heart rate's at 150. Like it seems really simple, but it's like he'd throw like a yellow circle there, and you're like, it's a blue triangle. Like it's just crazy. Like it's just some weird stuff, but it just made you think a little bit different, you know. Like, and that's what I was sort of talking about before. I was like, where can I get that 1% of whatever it is? And for me, that was I want to be better and calmer in situations.
What was it like travelling with Mick? I know you guys got a great relationship. Like, what have you learnt from him, and what's that sort of relationship do for you?
Yeah, well, he's just a humble, down-to-earth guy, but someone, I think more than anything, just the person that he is and how generous he is with his time and community. It's like for someone who's done what he's done, gone through what he's gone through, and still be just a good person, mate, you can't learn any more than that. Like that's up there with you know, who we want to be as people. Is like, I want to achieve stuff, yeah, great, but I want to be a better person. And he's certainly been one for that. But he where my sort of journal and book all started was actually through Mick. He actually reminded me of that. It was a game in 2019, early 2019, and I remember like I had a couple of weeks where my form sort of dropped off a little bit, and somehow we were just sort of chatting at the time, and I was like, my form's dropped off a little bit. I don't think I'm doing this as well, and whatever. I don't even think I asked him a question or anything. He just wrote back like a novel of like, man, this is how I did it. Like when I need to practice my turn or a float or whatever it was. Like I structured my sessions like this, and I'd focus on it like this. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay. Like a lot of detail went into his training sessions and a week or how he prepared. And that's kind of where it all started, where I was like, oh, I could prepare so much better than what I'd been doing. So just like that and sharing his knowledge, and that all started through Red Bull. Like that's how it all kind of happens. And even talking to different athletes through there in different aspects of how they handle different situations is kind of cool. And that's, how that kind of started and the relationship with him.
So I love about this, I don't know if it's a generational thing that's changed, but like the collaboration of people. Like I don't know, at the start of your career, definitely, maybe it's a time and a place, but for me as well, like early days, you just weren't sort of giving anyone else you just wanted to keep it all to yourself and not like share lessons or learnings, both positive and negatively. But now, like the days of podcasting and people want to work together, like there's just, you can learn so much more from other people.
Mate, 100%. I think we're starting to realise that sharing knowledge, connecting with others, not only is helping them, but it helps you.
There's selfishness for it, for sure.
Yeah, like it makes you feel better that you're helping someone else. Like there's that element to it that does happen, but I think it's a good thing. Like, and even in our industry, in footy, like we're competing against each other, but like we share how we handle different things. Like I've spoken to guys from other clubs that, in whether it's at the end of the season or they're going through a form drop, I was like, well, how do you deal with different situations? Well, we can share stories and help each other out to become the best we possibly can be. Like it's part of it.
Who has like reached out to you, if you don't mind me asking, like AFL stuff?
Definitely spoke with Track a fair bit.
Yeah.
We've been able to talk through Red Bull. Like a couple of years ago went to Austria together and just shared stories about different situations, how we deal with different scenarios. Like he was a great one. Like he shared a lot with me about different things and how he handled different situations, what he thought about different things. Again, like he's quite emotional, which I am as well. Is like, man, I get so fired up about this, or this annoys me. This is how I dealt with it. Bont's another one that I'm pretty close with. Joel, early days for sure. So those guys have been a big support for me as well. Like just being able to share your story with someone else, and then they're like, mate, I understand that. Like this is how I deal with it. Like makes a massive difference. Speaking
of important people in your life, I know we touched on your father, but I know you got a really good relationship with your mum.
Yep.
I love my mum too, man. Like I can't even talk about her without choking up. But like, how your mum doesn't miss a game? She didn't last year?
No, she didn't last year. So last year was possibly going to be my last year. She was like, I'm not missing a game. So she retired at the start of the year from work, and then come to every game. Yeah, so she never really missed many over my career. Like she's come to China. How many times we played over there? 3.
Wow.
She went to every one of them.
Early days, it was very easy to get tickets as well.
Yeah, mate, she could have had a whole row. Like there was no.
She had a whole bay.
She had a tarp just behind her. Like she was fine. It's a little bit trickier now.
Yeah.
So mate, she doesn't miss many games. Even like so, my 300th was COVID year, and we played at Marvel. No one in the stands. Mum was trying that hard to like get to the game, and I think one of the radio stations, I think it might have been Kane at the time, was trying to get Mum like in the radio. She was going to come to the game, and ended up not coming. But I think I had on like FaceTime. I was doing an interview like after the game, like all that kind of stuff. So that was sad that she wasn't there for that, like all my family, because obviously it was a special moment. But yeah, she doesn't miss too many now. She's not going to miss any this year either, I think.
Who's exciting you the most for the year ahead in your like in at Port, like young guys that are going to step up, like with Dixon? Obviously, he's finished up. Unfortunately, Toddy's sort of hurt himself, so there's going to be some big positions to sort of fill.
Yeah, so we're going to have a bit of a different forward line now, and that'll change our game style a little bit. I think what you saw the last couple of years, or since Charlie was sort of at the club, was just kicking to Charlie, basically. So that'll change a fair bit, and I think Luco coming in is going to be massive for us.
Is he playing forward?
He's a weapon, yeah.
Forward.
He's been training forward, and mate, he's got the best kick.
Beautiful kick.
I thought Dan was a great kick. Like
Luco
is.
No, we don't like him anymore.
He's Luco's ridiculous, mate. Like,
there you go. Have a whack at Dan.
60, 70, like he can have a shot.
So you're saying Dan Houston's a shit kick now?
Second best kick.
Second best kick.
So he's a big one. Even Bez coming over. Bez getting drafted. He's gonna come straight in, mate. Like he's a stud. Like he's
a cool dude.
Yeah, he's got some swagger about him.
Do you like do you get into the number allocation much? Do you like seeing what numbers guys get?
Not really.
Oh, okay.
Care too much.
Yeah, okay. It's one of my passions. It's one of my passions. Like,
really?
No, I'm very big on it. Yeah.
So you reckon the better the number, the better the player, kind of thing?
Well, I just sort of think like you got to aesthetically sort of pick players that suit certain numbers. So I'm very happy with his choice. Number 5.
He looks good in 5.
Yeah, he looks good in 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like Zach in 9, just going.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Because
he
he didn't
works.
no offense to Kane, but the 18 is just not a great midfield number.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Horny now is in the 18. I don't,
18.
but I think for them, I sort of like Kane backs him up, so there's sort of something there that they can wear the same number.
Maybe he'll look better in 10.
Maybe. You'll have to wait a few, maybe 5 more years. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see about that one.
Again, talk about this stuff for hours, but I love it, mate.
City for days, for sure.
Yeah. But mate, no, I appreciate it. You've been absolutely incredible. It's worse a 3-year wait. I hope there's not another 3 years before the next one.
Nah, let's catch up again soon.
I'm genuinely pumped for you, man, and honoured to sit down today. But I think for you, like, the sky's the limit on what's achievable. But as you said, as long as you just continue to be yourself and work it out, the rest will take care of itself.
Exactly. Appreciate it, brother.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you.
Cheers.